either with welcoming protocol or someone sharing their manao to sort of get us on the right track. So today, Ryan Kanapole, one of our authority members, is going to share some of his manao with us.
Hello, Chair. I guess my manao today is more of a reminder. It's a reminder to the board members. Hello, everybody up there. When we took this position, when we were called to this position, we knew that we would have difficult conversations. We knew that we would have difficult issues ahead. We knew that there would be opinions and sentiment that I think a lot of people would not want to be part of or be subject to. We knew that we would have certain pressures put upon us, anxiety and stress. But we showed up anyway. And I think we all have our reasons for showing up. And I think it would be a shame for me to try to put those reasons into words, because I believe that, at least for myself, those reasons are more profound than words can express. But whatever they are, whoever they are, why ever they are, I just want us all to kind of bring that front of mind and hold on to that today. That's the source of your strength. That's the source of your compassion and your humanity. And we need to always remember that. Because the work that we anticipated, the hard discussions, they're here now. So with that, take a deep breath in, out, and we can start the work. What do you?
Thank you. So I would assume that most people here that want to testify are going to testify on the governor's letter. So what I'm going to do is we have a space for if you want to just testify in general. We have a space up front for people to testify in general. If not, I'm going to wait until we get to that agenda item and have people testify after we get an update about what we're doing from our executive director, John DeFries. Okay?
Okay.
So we're going to go through some other things on our agenda, and then we'll get to this to the governor's letter. So the first matter of business is approval of the minutes. Is there any changes, the suggested changes on the approval of the minutes? Not if I could get a motion to approve the minutes of October 9th, 2025.
I approve, yeah,
Okay.
I move.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous? Unanimous. As a housekeeping matter, can all of you confirm who are on the screen coming in through Zoom that you are alone? Raise your hand if you're alone in the room. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first substantive item of business is the chair's report. And the one item that I wanted to report on is the issue of our legislative attempts to sort of clarify the law as it relates to us. The only update I have is that we recently met with the Ways and Means Committee here in Hilo, and they indicated that they were unlikely to pass anything that we submitted as an authority. For those of you in the audience, we had like 5 points that we wanted to have clarify: how we get the land, who issues conservation use permits, what happens to the existing conservation use permits to the astronomy that are granted to the astronomy facilities, what happens if we don't finish developing our rules on time. So we have a legislative package that we're proposing to sort of clarify and make things easier and more clear and transparent. But the Ways and Means Committee indicated as a whole that they were unlikely to pass anything that we submitted. It was not clear to me what the substantive or the projections were on their merits. Still don't quite understand what specific objectives they have to our proposals. But anyway, we continue to work with the members of the House to see whether or not we can still advance the bill. And I'm happy to talk after the meeting with anybody that wants to know what our legislative package is about. So with that, we can, like I said, we continue to work with members of the House. And at some point, we'll bring back to all of you, probably in our next meeting, what our strategy is in light of the inclination of the Senate not to pass anything that we introduced. So with that, there's nothing to report on governance. I'm going to turn over the bulk of the meeting to our executive director. For those of you who have not met him, our executive director is John DeFries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to extend Chairman Komeji's point about the the legislature, is it might help to go back to the 2022 legislative session where a law was put forth called Act 255. Act 255 became law in large part because there was a working group, a very diverse working group that included educators, elected officials, kia'i, cultural practitioners, and all came together to put forth a working group report that led to Act 255. Act 255 led to the creation of the authority. That law went into effect July 1, 2023. And at that time, it triggered a 5-year, 60-month transition period from July 1, 2023 to July 1, 2028. Okay? The 5-year clock, or 60 months, you and I today are in month 29. So we're approaching the midpoint in this transition. And it's important to hold on to that context because it'll have a bearing on just about everything we talk about today, including the letter issued by the governor and the congressional delegation. Okay, you have a photo of the board. Members of the board, just to introduce them. So that law created a 12-member authority, okay, of which 11 of them vote on all matters. You've met our chairman, John Komeji, Dr. Noi Wong Wilson, known to many of you. You see her on the screen today, live from Aotearoa. Rich Matsuda of Waimea, Director of Keck Observatories, Mayor Kimo Alameda, Navigator Captain Pomai Bertelman. Neil Hannes is in the room with us today. Paul Horner, who has an extensive background in business, hospitality, most recently at Naleo TV, now based on the mainland and commuting back and forth. Dr. Bonnie Irwin, Chancellor of the University of Hawaii, Hilo. Dr. Irwin is the only one of the 12 that does not have a vote. And the reason for that will be explained later. Mahalo to Ryan Kanakaole for his opening mana'o today. Dr. Kalehua Krug, an educator, a scholar, a well-known cultural practitioner. Benjamin Kudo, who you'll hear from shortly, is appointed to represent the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii. He has the vote. And so the reason that Dr. Irwin does not is the intent was not to give the University of Hawaii 2 votes on this matter. Okay? And then Lanakila, Manuel. Okay? So this is the 12-member board that are functioning today on everyone's behalf. Now, with the creation of this authority, you've got multiple things going on a business level. You have the startup of a new organization. you have a merger, and you have an acquisition function all happening at the same time. So our day-to-day business goes from the most boring items that you can think about to the most dynamic and exciting aspects of our work. One of the boring things is finding an office in the interim for us to work with. I'm going to ask on our project director, Bill Stormont, to provide the board with an update.
Thanks.
And the audience, please.
Yes, Jeff Luigi, members of the authority and community law. Sorry, my back is to you. Just very briefly, part of the boring stuff is we do have, as it's been reported, we have an interim office at 688 Hilo here in Hilo. We're very close to getting our furniture package delivered, internet and so forth, all of that, but we are functioning in that office now. What's also been reported is that we had previously secured a right of entry from the land board for use of the former Bank of Hawaiʻi office in Hilo. We have since relinquished that, and we were in the process, we came to an agreement with the land board or land division staff about a cleanup process. We completed that 2 weeks ago. And on the 12th of December, there will be a land board agenda item where they will decide formally to relinquish that site from our possession. So that's forthcoming. So that's a quick update on that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Board members, any questions about the status of the office? Hearing none, let me just say that the Bank of Hawaii building, closest to the airport, the old former Bank of Hawaii building, we looked at it seriously, and as it turns out, it cannot handle all of the functions that we need. And so I'm grateful to the Board of Land and Natural Resources for granting us the right of entry. And, but we have formally disengaged. That is no longer an option. Another critical function during this transition is imagine having to evaluate and assess all assets, all liabilities, all contracts, all agreements that currently exist on or around the mountain, and which is a very complex process to go through. We've retained a law firm with a legal team that is looking at every one of those areas, and leading it on behalf of the authority is board member Benjamin Kudo, who has fortunately an immense background in this field. Ben Kudo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. My apologies to Paul Horner because I thought I was not going to be able to make.
Hold on, Ben. Ben, hold on 1 second.
Sure, go, Ben. Ben,
Yeah,
Ben?
okay, go ahead.
Okay,
my apologies to Paul. I thought I was not going to be able to make this meeting, but my schedule changed suddenly yesterday. Anyway, as I told all of you, I'm reporting on the status of the long-term transition working group. Our analysis work has been completed as of October. And this is a tentative schedule. I haven't gone over this with our consultants yet, but I wanted to give you guys a tentative schedule of what the deliverables will be from our working group moving forward. We're expecting at the end of this month a schematic or outline from our attorney consultants on the narrative portion of the master transfer plan. I call it the MTP. The master transfer plan will list all of the different assets and liabilities, but also have a narrative portion which discusses and explains some of the details of those assets and liabilities. So we're going to get an outline of that narrative by the end of this month. By January 20th, we will hopefully have the delivery of a draft of that narrative for our group to review and comment, the working group to review and comment, and hopefully through several iterations, hopefully by March 30th of next year, we will be able to finalize the narrative as well as the appendages, which are all the matrices and explanations and brief summaries of each of the assets and liabilities in final form for distribution to not only this board, but the Board of Regents, and a copy also to the Board of Land Natural Resources for review and comment. It will come along with the recommendation of the long-term transition working group to either transfer or not to transfer all of the respective assets and liabilities included in that. Hopefully, we will receive comments back by the Board of Regents, MKSOA, and BLNR between March 30th and May 30th. And we're hoping that by May 30th, that this board, the Board of Regents, will approve the master transfer plan. That's May 30th of next year. And then we will enter the last phase of our work, which is the actual implementation of the transfer, conveyance, and assignment of those assets and liabilities from UH to MKSOA. And that is expected to take at least 2 years to accomplish, which is why we're on a very short time frame to get this master transfer plan approved. And hopefully by July 1st, 2028, we will have completed all, if not all, most of the transfers and assignments. Some of them require third-party review and consent. Some of them involve countries. Some of them involve third parties on the mainland, etc. So we don't know what the timeframes will be, but we're anticipating at least a 2-year period to get that accomplished. But it all depends on whether this board, the Board of Regents, approve the master transfer plan by May 30th of next year. Anyway, that's our tentative schedule of deliverables to this board. And if there's any questions, I can answer them.
Any questions for Ben Kudo? Okay, hearing none, I do want to welcome.
I do have a question, John.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Just-
Noi.
Yeah, sorry, Ben. I know that the work you've been doing is quite intensive, and you've spent a lot of time, volunteer time, Ben, doing this work. So mahalo for all of that, you and your committee, you and Paul. I just wonder if there's anything in particular that is of note, particularly problemsome, or if you haven't an example of the complexity of what you are working with that you might share with us.
I would say that 90% of the assets and liabilities are pretty straightforward in terms of understanding what they are and why they should or shouldn't be assigned. I think the only one that's problematic is the observatory operating management agreements that UH had negotiated with each observatory as they came online during the last few decades. Some of them have different kinds of responsibilities and obligations that are shared between UH and the observatories. And some of the observatories, you have to recall, are partnerships between various parties and countries. And so trying to tease through some of those functions and responsibilities that should be assigned to MKSOA or should stay with UH. For instance, for example, academic programs. There are academic programs that are obligated on the part of UH to run in conjunction with those particular observatories. Clearly, MKSOA is not involved in the business of academics and research. And so we need to tease those out between us and UH and only take those things which are within the scope of our jurisdiction and functionality. So that is going to be on a case-by-case basis as we look at each agreement with each observatory. Most of the observatories have a kind of a standard form, but there are about 3 or 4 that have these kind of customized agreements that we have to work through. So that's probably the most problematic of all of them.
Okay, mahalo. Thank you, Ben, for that explanation. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Noi, for that question. I also want to welcome onto the screen, I think they were off stage, Kalihua Krug and Lanakila Manguel, 2 of our authority members. who are here with us today. Going on, any other questions for Ben Kudo?
Yeah, note the mayor just turned his
Okay.
camera on as well. So
Mayor? Mayor, you're muted if you're speaking.
No, I just want to say hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ben, thank you for that report and for overseeing a complex process. Again, what he is looking at are assets, contracts, agreements currently held by the University of Hawaii that during this transition period, which ends July 1, 2028, has to make a smooth crossover and now becomes the full kuleana of the authority. Complex work, and we're fortunate to have Ben Kudo working on that. And now moving to item 6C, we're gonna have a update preliminary report on a series of community meetings that the authority conducted going back to April of this year. There were 6 locations on Hawaii Island that Mahina will talk to you about. Mahina Paishan was brought in to facilitate this, along with a group called Hackbed, which handled the logistics of it. Mahina's background with the working group that preceded the law, the time the law was created, she was active as a community advocate, as a cultural practitioner, engaging with those people and helping them along. So she arrived into this assignment with a deep background on the process. And so we turned to her at this time. Mahina, I'm going to ask you to provide your update.
Good morning, MKSOA authority members, MKSOA staff, and esteemed committee members. Aloha nui kākou. Thank you for having me to provide an update. What I'd like to do, I'm going to share screen and I'm going to give a high-level overview. Hold on. High-level overview of the community engagement talk story sessions that commenced in April of this year and just concluded just a few weeks ago in October. Okay, so I'll give this first 6 minutes and high-level overview, and I want to save about 4 minutes for any questions that you might have. So my purpose here is to provide the scope and the format of the community conversations, and then preliminary findings and possible next steps. So first of all, giving you kind of the overall format, each meeting, there are 6 meetings that were held in total from April through October in Waimea. We located our meetings in Waimea, Kona, Ka'u, Hilo, and Laupoihoihoi, which is supposed to be representative of the Moku Honoka'a. So 5 Moku represented. Waimea, we had 2 meetings. And the reason why we had a hanaho session for Waimea is because we understood that the initial meeting that we conducted was a very busy evening for many community members, and they requested that we would offer an encore session. So we did do that. Each session was 2 hours long. It was supported by Hackbed, as well as my company, Mahina Consulting, and by MKSOA authority members as well as their staff. The focus of these community talk story sessions was to provide an opportunity, a forum for community members to provide feedback and input on the draft strategic framework for which you folks composed. The second purpose was really to provide an opportunity for community members to engage authority members, sitting authority members as well as its staff, and to begin to strengthen rapport and direct back and forth communication with community members. We hosted each meeting, all 6 meetings in a hybrid format. So committee members were able to participate in person and online, okay, via your folks' YouTube channel. Essentially, we had guiding questions when we would break out into smaller community discussion groups. The questions were really focused on getting, again, their input and feedback on the draft strategic framework for which you folks produced. And we wanted to know what is not understandable and what is missing. Off the bat, when I employed a method for conducting a preliminary analysis of high-level themes, I had two independent research assistants take all of the raw input from each session, both online and in person, had two independent researchers conduct an analysis, and then we brought it together and then looked at themes across each independent analysis. So what I'm going to present to you now are 6 findings across all 3 themes, cross-cutting themes. Community says that there is a need, while there's a great appreciation for presenting the core principles and values that are guiding MKSOA, they are asking for greater clarity, transparency for how the framework will be operationalized, inclusivity, and cultural integrity in all aspects of the framework and the operationalization of the framework. So, in essence, the conclusion given the preliminary analysis is in 4 points. Community underscores a desire that this strategic framework, while a good solid start, needs to continue to be culturally grounded in Kanawai and Ike Kupuna ancestral intelligence, transparent and accessible to all audiences, not one demographic, all audiences. Needs to have an educational and intergenerational framing, and is action-oriented, measurable, and restorative in its outcomes. Okay, now I'm going to just talk through 1 point per key finding. Again, there are 6 areas of findings. For the first point, clarity, language, and accessibility. So I want to draw your attention to bullet point 1. Complex and academic language makes the framework difficult for general audiences to understand. So what they're asking for is that we want to understand and participate participate in the ongoing conversations for which MKSOA is having. And to do that in an effective way from a community perspective, it needs to be understandable. So too much jargon is basically what they're saying, a little bit too much jargon. And while Olelo Hawaiʻi and Hawaiian concepts are generally supported throughout the input that's been received, definitions are also being asked for so that everyone can help to build their cultural competency. Moving on to the next key finding. Draw your attention to point 3, where it says participants called for clear accountability structures and an organizational chart and explicit information on who oversees the authority. Community members essentially are asking, yes, we essentially like this draft strategic framework. However, we also want to see how does this overlay with the overall governance and the interjurisdictional kuleana between various departments and agencies. And they want to understand how MKSOA sits given the overlapping, in some cases, overlapping authority and jurisdiction. Moving on. Key finding number 3, core values, guiding principles, and vision. Again, going to point number 3, vision and inspirational language. They like the language that has been offered. However, they're asking for statements that is going to compel them forward with great hope, So in essence, when you look at the raw data and the anecdotal evidence, stakeholders are saying, we want to feel compelled to hopeful action. And they want to see, while a good start, they want to see more inspirational, visionary language that is going to move from the current state that has taken us only so far to a state that is that can be transformational for Hawaii. Point four, key finding number 4. Look at bullet point number 3. The framework should explicitly integrate Native Hawaiian cultural practices, including ceremonies, celestial navigation, and ancestral sciences as living components of stewardship. Later on in the agenda, we will be presenting as a Kuawakea team, and you'll hear how the kanawai is being lifted up in in our work. And this is a continuation from the legislative working group as well, and also in your draft strategic framework. So participants are saying, community members are saying yes to kanawai, and how is it going to be applied and integrated throughout, from the 30,000-foot level, strategic level, all the way to the ground level of operations and tactics. Okay, just wrapping it up, 2 more points. So key finding number 5, education and youth engagement. You know, our last session in Waimea, our encore session in Waimea just a few weeks ago, was, well, we had a good representation of youth from local area schools, and their participation really shifted the energy. And so community members are saying we need more K-12 education participation, and they want to see education K through post high as a key focal point throughout. And then finally, key finding community engagement and communication. Point number 1, feedback, emphasize that they appreciate having the opportunity. Many community members said that they appreciate the opportunity for which MKSOA authority and staff members essentially availed themselves to questions and answers for typically the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of each 2-hour conversation, and it was meaningful to them. And they are expressing here that if we can have more of this kind of communication, ongoing loop back communication, that it will go further in rebuilding trust across community, government, and so forth. Oh, there's a couple more. Sorry about that. Science and knowledge systems. Some of it is a little bit repetitive. Point number 2, expanding science to include all the sciences and not just astronomical sciences, and integrated with Indigenous Hawaiian ways of knowing, kanawai and Indigenous governance. Okay, inclusion of the kanawai with accompanying definitions in point 2 would help to strengthen the draft framework. Funding, resources, and implementation. Development of an economic model that aligns resource use with stewardship principles. Pardon me. Okay, so with that, the possible next steps would be, I've been contracted to help to put together, based on all of this preliminary analysis, to work with MKSOA to put together a next draft of the draft strategic framework. That concludes my presentation. I'll stop share now. I want to open up for possible questions if you have any.
Any authority members have questions for Mahina, who is also in Aotearoa, making us jealous.
Kia ora.
I don't have Kia ora. I don't have a question. I just want to also acknowledge, Mahina, the hard work you and your team have done, and I know that being present in all but one of the meetings, the interchange with our authority members, our staff, and the community that came was really, really, really good. And so I hope that we will continue down this path. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Neil.
Yes, I want to join Noi in commending the work that Mahina did in facilitating these meetings, and also Hackbed in kind of capturing the raw material, the spirit, and the input of the community. Three additional points. the strategic framework that the audiences reacted to, it didn't come out that, nowhere. It was really what we drew from the working group report that existed previously, as well as Act 255 itself, that language. We tried to grab from that language because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we wanted to honor the community's long-term voice and input on this matter. We're not starting this today. This has been a longer-term conversation. And so we tried to grab all that to reflect to the community that we're listening. And the legislature listened to you, they put it into Act 255. So we said, let's grab that as a first draft. But we did want their input, and we do feel there's opportunities to improve upon that draft. The second thing, when Mahina talks about jurisdictional issues, it wasn't so much about power, it was about how natural systems work. They say, if you're looking at, the coherence and supporting the function of our natural systems, they don't pay attention to boundaries. They exist on a natural plane, but your jurisdiction exists kind of as an overlay to that. So how are you gonna work that out? And we're not sure exactly how that's gonna work out yet, but that's a challenge for us as we go forward. The final thing is, I don't forget from our YMAN meeting, people looked at the diversity of our authority, standing side by side against the stage, answering questions. And they say, that's what we want. Says, you guys all working collaboratively. And in fact, that's what they reflected, because in our audience, we had people who are KIA, we had people who were from the astronomy industry, we had people from the business community. And these meetings were really quite harmonious, and people working together, arms sleeved up like a community, trying to work out this framework together and comment together. And so we found great, some satisfaction in that. And when you think back to why does MKSOA exist? MKSOA exists because at one level we said we're pursuing academic and commercial and other interests, and even cultural interests, sometimes in a manner that's colliding with what we think is in the best interest of a mauna that we consider sacred or significant. And this is causing disharmony. So we exist to try and figure out how can we do this better so that we reduce that disharmony, and find a way to have a regulatory regime that really understands the essential cultural, ecological functions of the mauna, and then accommodates and regulates human activity in a manner that supports that. So that's the challenge we have, and what we're hearing from the community is you're kind of on the right track in terms of the first thing you got to do is you got to bust the silos, and you got to have everybody working together and engaged in these meetings. And I look across the audience today as those here in attendance today, and I'm kind of seeing some of that as well reflected in your presence, and we very much appreciate that and benefit from that.
Thank you, Neil.
I'll just say one more thing. The strategic framework that was introduced, the draft, was purposely broad, not filled with a lot of detail, because we wanted the community to engage with us and feedback and tell us what their priorities are. And so now that we have this first report from Mahina, we have I think a pretty good idea. It's not unanticipated, the response from community. I think, there's nothing that's a surprise to me anyway. But I think it's an indication that we are on the right path and that we're listening, and that the next draft that we develop for the strategic plan will include much of the recommendations of the community. Yeah. The mahalo.
Thank you. Any other authority members for Mahina? His hand is not up, but I'm going to call on Lanakila, because Lanakila was instrumental in a series of meetings in establishing the opening and closing protocol, and was very attentive to that aspect of it. Lanakila, Yomana'o, please.
Aloha. I definitely do want to echo do as well. Mahalo nui for the great work of helping us in creating that safe space. That's something I just want to share too, that I've had at a number of the meetings, just kind of bumping into people as we're all leaving. They said, this felt very safe. and this felt, I don't know, we felt, this felt good to speak to, and as well as also diverse community, as well as diverse in generations. A safe place that even the Kamali'i and Opio were able to come and participate and engage with all of us and Kupuna all together. But I think holding that space too, which is just befitting for the reason why we do protocol. I think just initiating that in the beginning of and closing our meetings in a good way is that is meant to help to hold everybody in a respectful manner. That we're also here for a collective reason, as a community, as a ohana, which is not normal for state agency kind of language, right? But I think the alternative also of what we are seeing in government all around, that we carry a big responsibility, especially being ones who are tasked to care for a sacred space, a very important place. Um, Therefore, we need to reflect that. And I think hearing from our community, and I think as all of us have been able to work together, and mahalo again, Mahina and all of you who we're walking, I feel we're walking in the right direction, that we are moving toward, how do you say, the Mauna's a Mauna voice, something that's thinking perpetual, long lasting, and something that plays an important, vital role. So we need to reflect that. And yeah, so for mahalo everybody for understanding and participating in our ways of maintaining that we are here not as overseers, but really as servants, Eli ka'ai na hikaua ke kanaka no hoi. So mahalo.
Mahalo, Lona Kila. Thank you. Any other comments from authority members? Mahina?
Thank you. Just two final comments. First is mahalo nui to all of the authority members, whether you're able to join on in person or perhaps online, or provide support in other ways towards these community talk story sessions. I know that every time that we participate, as I have served in other roles as a volunteer board member in state board, I know that it is taking time away from your families and from your other responsibilities. So I want to thank each of you for showing up in the ways that you do. And then finally, just encouragement. I've had some key community figures inquire, when will this strategic framework be finalized? And when will we know that it's actually going to be utilized to guide the rest of the work? So my encouragement to all of you, respectfully, is I will do my part to support all of you to get to the next final draft, and community is enthusiastically waiting for the final draft, the final approval of this framework. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Mahina. I'm going to ask Neil to expand on that point. And
Well,
yeah,
not so much that point, but I wanted to also add a commendation to Rich, because Rich showed up, I think, virtually at all the community meetings. And he brought with him other heads of observatories and some other members of the scientific community. And I'd be keen to figure out, to hear from Rich as to, his own feedback on the.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Neil. So with regards to creating a safe space and having open discussion where all the perspectives were, mutually respectful and honored, we had a number of observatory folks show up at all the meetings, I think, including leadership and staff members. And kind of unanimous feedback that I got from people who attended was that they both found it extremely educational experience to hear other perspectives, and also felt very welcome to share theirs. And so the experience was, like unanimously positive, and folks were expressing to me that they would like to engage in a continued way with that. So thanks, Neil, for saying that. I think sometimes when we say the word community, we think in our minds that it's only one sector of the community, but it was really rewarding to see the observatory people fully integrated into these conversations. So I think that's what we want to keep in our mind going forward, is when we have these meetings, it's everyone in the community come. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Mahina, thank you again. Let me just add two closing thoughts in her segment. Lanakila touched on it as well. In our last meeting 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago in Waimea, a group, probably about 12, 15 young ones appeared and came, probably age 6, 7 to early teens, and who provided part of the opening and closing protocol. What I found really intriguing about that group was during the work sessions with the adults broke into different corners, and Mahina had run them through a series of questions to get the kind of clarity that she's reporting on. It was uplifting to see the young ones fully engage, express their concerns about the plant life on Mauna Kea, the bird life on Mauna Kea, and what the future of Mauna Kea will look like. And so we're grateful for that. The other thing that happened is back in October, myself, Bill Stormont, Neil Hannes, Mahina Paishan, and Antinoinoi Wong Wilson appeared in Seattle, more specifically on the lands of the Tulela Nation, and at the Hawaiian Native Hawaiian Convention, spontaneously a Mauna Kea session was created because we were all there. And so that gave us an opportunity to directly engage with Native Hawaiians who live on the continent. And as you can imagine, the subject, the desire to be at home, if not to visit Ohana, but to relocate back home, all of those feelings kind of came forward and produced a really strong, in-depth feedback, which Mahina is now kind of factoring into her findings. And then Mahina, the next step will be staff will want some time with you to look at these findings and begin to move it toward the next draft that we can present to the authority in full, and then work our way toward finalizing that document, which will prove vital to the next steps that we're taking. So thank you. Okay, moving to item 6D. Act 255 requires that a new management plan be developed for the authority. And we embarked upon a request for proposals earlier in the summer. It resulted in a selection in mid to late summer, and we are now underway after contract. The contract was activated with a planning consortium that is led by SSFM International, DTL out of Honolulu, the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, and Mahina Paishan is part of that leadership group as well. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to April Supernon, and if we can find Malia somewhere in the South Pacific, that would be great.
Aloha, Mahina and I are together in Aotearoa.
Aloha all. Mahalo for having us here today to introduce ourselves and the team for this ever important and groundbreaking effort that we are all embarking on. I'm April Surprenant. I am the manager and strategic services, or for strategic services and planning for SSFM, which is a multidisciplinary consulting firm that has been founded and based in Hawaii for more than 65 years. Next slide. As John spoke to, our collective Kua'awakea as the consulting team, and we bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, both technically and culturally, to this effort. We come with a commitment grounded in Aloha Aina and the Mauna, and we embrace this opportunity to connect Aina and Kanaka through a framework rooted in ancestral knowledge, accountability, and stewardship. As mentioned earlier, the project is guided by Act 255 that Executive Director John DeFries has explained, and by the draft strategic framework that the authority has been developing and refining that Mahina and Auntie Noinoe and Uncle Neil just spoke to. Also, most of our team members either reside on the Big Island or are from or have roots and ohana here, many of whom also share ike or knowledge through Olelo Hawaii. Next slide. Our hui alakai, or leadership for Kua'awakea, are the four of us who you are meeting today. Myself, I bring about 30 years of experience in community, environmental, and land use planning, 20 of which are on Hawaii Island and statewide. Malia Kaihui is the president of Detail Hawaii, which is an innovative strategy studio that is culturally grounded and known for its multidisciplinary approach to planning, design, and also communications. Hui Ka'anahele Mossman is the executive director for the Edith Kanakaole Foundation. I think most people are familiar with this organization. It is Hawaiian culture-based nonprofit for more than 35 years, committed to education and the elevation of Hawaiian intelligence based on the teachings and traditional practices of Edith and Luka Kanakaole. And lastly, you've met already, but just a little bit more about Mahina and her consulting firm. They bring more than 2 decades of leadership grounded in Native Hawaiian traditions, cultural integrity, and is really known for her collaborative community outreach and group facilitation. Next slide. Malia.
Aloha everyone, Malia Kaihui here from Detail Hawaii, calling in. I'm here with Mahina at WIPSI. Mahalo nui for having Kua'awakea here to present this morning. I wanted to share with you our larger team. Mahalo nui April for introducing our framework and our team. On this slide, what you see is all of the people that have their hands in the important work that we're doing in this contract to create the comprehensive planning documents that will lead the authority moving forward. So incredible leadership with April Supernaut and SSFM, and her team include, her Hilo-based team include Jennifer Sheffel, Lorian Lala Noose, as we call her, Jenna Kamalani Earl, and Heather Bartlett. On our Detail Hawaii team, we have our 2 principals, myself and Jason Antonio, both born and raised in Hilo, as well as Kahana Palencia Cuban, Lane Maki, and Keanuenue DeSoto, as well as Kaulana Ing. From our Edith Kanakaole Foundation, Hui, working on the project is Hui, Kanahele Mossman, Auntie Kaleinu Uhiva, and Luka Kanakaole. From our Mahina Paishan consulting team, led by Mahina, Jessica Kaneakua, Mehana Vaughn, Mehano Kala Hines, and Mahelani DuPont. And then we added to our team a handful of experts in disciplines that we felt important in the planning process. So we have Mahina Tudor, who is our Hawaiian and environmental law expert. Samuel Kamuela Plunkett of Waimea, and he is specializing in land use and climate adaptability. In archaeology with Tanya Lee Gregg, Kalani Flores with Manaoya I'o, as a tremendous addition to our team to add the genealogy of work on the Mauna, as well as looking at ways in which planning documents in the past have led to where we are here today. Much of what is captured in Act 255, so he adds a lot of value to that, and will be supporting in the community engagement as well. And last, Rebecca Soon, or Becky Soon, as many of you may have know her. She's helping with the community engagement and thinking about research and how possible research tools can be used in the planning process moving forward. So this is our Kuowakia team. And we can move to the next slide, and I'll just review the project schedule as well. This is a high-level overview of the project schedule, just to give you an idea of how we're moving through this work. We are moving through the work in a methodology that we call Mo'o methodology, which means that we understand that we are standing on the path that was cleared by many, many planners and community members and people that came before us. And on this on this succession, that we have this given point in time to sit and to think about this in a way that we hope is collaborative. And so the first phase of that work is our Mo'oku'auhau phase. It's really understanding the genealogy of the different plans on the Mauna. We are trying to look at this from the perspective of Ike Kupuna, so thinking about it from the beginning of Hawaiian time to more the today period of all the contemporary plans from the 2009 plan and the supplemental plans and UH's master plan. And so the Mo'oku'auhau phase really allows us to audit all of the plans that came before us and all the work that's happened, and also combine that with the genealogy of the Mauna. One thing that I'd like to point out with the Kuowakia team is that we collectively understand that Mauna Awakea is our client, and we're moving in that way through this work. So we just wrapped up this phase of research and discovery. And really, this is creating the baseline for all the rest of the work that will continue. So the authority is now reviewing phase 1, and we're moving directly into phase 2, which is our Mo'olelo phase. So the Mo'olelo is like the lineage of generations of stories, taking that discovery phase into community and understanding all of the community stories as well. And when I say community, I mean I cast the widest net possible when I think of community. So all of the stakeholders of the Mauna. And, in this phase, really the planning and engagement. So we are writing up the plan, and Mahina will share in a little bit the large community engagement effort that will commence really soon. The third phase is our Mo'oka'i phase, a lineage of journeys. And this phase is really where we draw up the management and strategic plans. So, although we're drafting the plans already, we're already in drafting mode of writing the plans. This is where we can really take everything that we learned in phase 1, the research and discovery, and everything with all the stakeholders in phase 2, the Mo'olelo, and start to really put the plan together and formalize the plan. And that's scheduled to happen in April of next year. So phase 2 wraps up in March, and then phase 3 starts in April. And then the last phase, our Mo'ovaivai phase, which is our lineage of generational practices, is what are the things that will persist on the Mauna moving forward in order for the Mauna to be cared for, as pertain to Act 255. So reporting and transition guide. So this is the phase where all of the final reports will be produced. We'll be in a lot of conversation with the authority on approvals for those reporting and transition guides, and hope to be wrapped up with our scope of work by October of 2026. I'll just say that this is a very sprinted effort to support the authority in getting their management plan forward. But I think we have a brilliant team to do that, and many knowledge leaders at the table, combined not just with Kuowakia, but with the authority members, to really do a good job in producing the best possible plan moving forward. And now, next slide, and I'll turn it over to Mahina.
Aloha again.
So wanted to let you know that our community engagement work is divided into three major sections. So we have a pre-engagement effort, which means we want to support all of our community stakeholders that will be participating in any of our 10 in-person hybrid sessions. That is going to start off in kickoff in Kona, January 7th, and then we'll proceed until end of February. So we're going to have the large effort is going to be gleaning feedback and input from community members, Pai'aina wide, in these locations, starting off again January 7th, and then concluding in end of February in Waimea, Hawaii, February 11th. These sessions, again, are going to be preceded by a pre-engagement effort already working with detail. They've already stood up a website, and we will be providing multiple ways for which community members can engage with new material and old existing material with the purpose of providing opportunity for community participants when they opt in to participate in any of one of the 10 in-person sessions or in an online hybrid way, that we want them to be fully informed of what the discussion points and the questions that we're going to be offering, and to provide them contextual information. We don't want to spring information upon our community members. We want them to have it in advance within like 6 weeks to 4 weeks prior to their scheduled session. After our 10 sessions, we will be doing a post-engagement effort and be doing a number of one-on-one interviews. We have slated 40 interviews that would actually commences this month, and will be conducted simultaneously concurrent to the 10 sessions, and then post February. So we'll have additional one-on-one interviews, as well as survey that will be deployed, 2 surveys that will be deployed. And with all of those 3 tactics in combination, we are confident that we will be gleaning the input and feedback needed to formulate a master and management plan. That concludes my portion. I'll hand it off now to Hui Hui.
Aloha mai kako. And so basically these are our 4 major project outcomes that we are working diligently with strict deadlines to be able to come up with this final product by the deliverable date of October 2026. As Mahina was saying, it is a sprint. Mahina and Malia was saying it is a sprint to the deadline. It is it's a great effort of all of these teams being experts in what they do to have these resources in their grasp so that we can get to this deadline of October 2026. And as Malia was saying, for our client, which is the Mauna, always remembering that and being with this is for the Mauna. The other standards that this plan will lay upon is the standards of the Kanawai. Specifically the 4 Kanawai that we've all listened, Mrs. Kanahele explanation of what these 4 Kanawai are, but to always remember that this plan is laid upon those 4 Kanawai, and the 4 Kanawai have to do with maintaining and being able to kia imoko the Mauna in the best way that we know possible. Next slide. Ho mahalo nui ia o kou pakahia pau no keia kuka ana. Again, mahalo for the opportunity to be able to work towards the health of our Mauna and towards the health of the the akua that reside there on the Mauna. Mahalo.
Thank you to April, Malia, Mahina, and Hui Hui. Before we open to the authority for questions, the timeline depicted in the presentation with the engagement ending October of 2026 is a really aggressive timeline that was embedded in the request for proposals as well as the contract. What it doesn't account for is what needs to happen internally at the authority in reviewing the information, reviewing the drafts as a means of getting to an approved comprehensive management plan. So we're in phase one right now, and what was depicted here in the timeline is accurate. What I'm referring to is additional time that the authority will need to review these segments. As you can imagine, you saw the collective of planners there, tremendous amount of expertise that runs extremely deep. And then you also put alongside the 12-member authority that was appointed to this role, and you see tremendous expertise there as well. Right in this room, you have representing business and finance, John Komeji. You have Deputy Director of DLNR, Ryan Kanakaole, himself a lawyer as well, and Neil Hannes with a whole lifetime of planning expertise. And then you add everybody else that's not in the room, finding a way to bring this all together so that we can benefit from each other's mana'o experience and perspective is part of the exciting challenge that lays ahead for us. So I want to thank you all with Kua Wakea, and at this time, open it up for questions or comments from the authority members.
Thank you, John. Hey, hello, everybody. Mayor's office. What a wonderful presentation. Just an unbelievable group and teamwork. Looking forward to this planning effort. Just my mana'o, as a psychologist, the biggest question when I work with families or kids or communities is who's the client? So sometimes parents say, oh no, my son, the client. And I bring them in a family therapy session and I say, no, the family, the client. So in this regard, I just kind of curious who decided that only the Mauna is the client. Because in my view, it's the Kanaka, it's the Mauna, the community. You can just say the Mauna's the client, then just take everything off.
Exactly.
Right? So how did we come up with that decision that we're only going to pick one aspect of the family as the client?
You go, cuz.
Aloha. Malia here. I'll take that question. Mahalo nui, Mayor, for your mana'o and sharing your expertise. In our kumulipo and in the Hawaiian ways of knowing, the Mauna we're genealogically tied to the Mauna as our elder siblings. So the methodology that we're doing is one based off the Aina and Kanaka. So Aina being that which feeds us, the Mauna and Kanaka our stewardship responsibility. So when we say that the Mauna is a client, it really is honoring that fundamental understanding that we have as Indigenous people, as Native Hawaiians, as people of, Hawaii Island. We understand that in the stewardship of the Mauna, obviously there's many stakeholder groups like the authority itself who's stewarding the contract, but really we take on the role as stewards of that sacred space. So that's the thinking behind it, and I'll invite my team members to add in if you have anything.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for that comment and question. So yes, our charge, my understanding as a Kua Wakea consultant whose primary responsibility is around community engagement, we fully understand that our charge is to ensure equitable, diverse, inclusive participation from all segments of our community and grounded by our place-based ancestral thinking. And so, yes, I'm saying yes to you that all segments of our community are invited and encouraged to participate. Mahalo.
Aloha. I'll come forward with that, with a response to that question too. Mahalo nui, Mayor,
Wow.
for your question. So EKF does a process, and the process is called, one of the processes that we work with community with is Papaku Makavalu. And it's basically, helping community understand an element on Aina, whether that element be, your coral reefs, whether that element be hilo, whether that element be our hilo be or the Kahawai Wailuku. Papaku Makavalu really looks at Aina, really looks at an element on the Aina. That's your Papaku. And then what we do is that now we're going to Makavalu, or now we're going to look at that element, that Papaku, in all of these different, through all of these different lens of, and these different lens of looking at our element or our Papaku are our stakeholders. They are our birds. They are our trees. They are our kanaka. They are our astronomers. They are our natural resource people that work on the Mauna, and they are our practitioners. All of these different lens are the makavalu for that one element, the Mauna Kea, which is the Papaku. So that's why we are saying that the client is Mauna Kea, the client is the Papaku, on which we now take all of these different perspectives, or with all of these makavalu, and then really, really focus on the Mauna, which is that one element. Mahalo nui for that.
Mahalo.
Any other questions or comments by authority members? Neil?
Two things, on that point, the Mauna as client resonated with me because as we look at our Kumulipo, man is there. But man is there as part and related to a larger system. And we thought that thinking was really essential to put the foundation of our work. To understand it's not about dominion over where we're on the land. This is land that we own. This is land that we can control to all of our uses. It's land in which we are ohana, and that we can figure out how to coexist in a way that's.
I mean, I hear you, but my thing is like we're so interdependent with the Aina, like family therapy. I know, like the family is the client, because like Johnny not gonna get better if mom and dad not ono. And mom and dad gotta understand that it's an interrelationship. So
yeah, absolutely.
So if I just make mom and dad the client, that's one bias already. If I just make Johnny the client, that's one bias already. If I just make the client, that's one bias already. Like we are all the client, the kanaka, the birds, the trees, the aina. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just my thinking. Yeah.
I think that's the point. I think the nomenclature is a little bit different, but that's the point. We are all the client. Because these are all related and they need to operate in an interrelated. So more discussion on that, and I'm sure as we roll forward. The second point is, given what I know about plants, plant is both product and process. And sometimes it feels like this process is really compressed, and in some ways we appreciate the team for taking on so much work in such a short period of time. In other ways, we apologize, we don't mean to rush things, but we're under the gun. The timeline that you laid out, we have a legislative deadline to meet, and where we've got to be ready and open for business and have with a plan in place and so by a certain time. And so that's the reason we're compressing it. This conversation won't end with the end of this planning period in 26 or even our creation in 2028. If this works, there'll be ongoing opportunities to kind of engage, but just want to make that note that the compression is not meant to kind of, limit voices, but really to have as much as we can so we can get voice. Yeah.
Which authority member is? Who's that?
Kalehua.
Kalehua.
No, I just wanted to add, that I think this is just ideological. The difference is when you see yourself separate from Mauna Kea, if you can actually conceptualize that if you're not specifically mentioned as a participant, that you are separate from Mauna Kea. And so for me, I feel like when we say Mauna Kea, it includes everyone. That's the definition of Aina. Aina is not separate from man, but I think it's just like it doesn't have to be that complex. But again, a Hawaiian ideological worldview, Aina means Kanaka. Mauna Kea is Aina. Aina equals Kanaka too. It just seems overcomplexified.
Thank you, Kaliwa. Any other questions or comments? Nobody?
Well, yes, I just want to add my
Okay, Noi
1 cent. I'm really looking forward to working with Kua'oakea. I'm really pleased with the group that was chosen for this work. And I tell you, if we can't do it collectively between this advisory, not advisory, between our authority and the team that's been brought on, I don't know anybody else in the world that can do it. So, let's just put our heads together. We're all committed to the hard work. We know we are working under a very, very tight and sometimes it seems unrealistic timetable, but that's the table we're playing on. And so there are certain things that we have no ability to change, such as this timetable. It's in the law, and we will just do our best, and we take it a day at a time, a month at a time, to meet our goals. And so, all of us, including the community, we all have to get on board and support this process, because if we don't, and if it's not successful, then what? And I don't want to say this out loud, but I don't want to stand on the road again. Let's make this work for the Mauna and for us and for our grandchildren. So mahalo.
Thank you, Noi. I think it's important that the mayor asked that question. Obviously, he asked it because he gets asked that question, right? And before he took office, I know I spent a little bit of time with him, and he was getting to know the island in the course of a campaign, right? And in the course of that, you got a lot of talk stories. I think your count, Mayor, was 75 or something like that. So it's really important on this authority that the diversity of opinions and perspectives feels comfortable in speaking, and at the same time begin to honor the differences between one another and then come together as a whole. From a staff level, that's critical, right? So that the circle of 12, and I say this respectfully, when I look at that circle, I think of them as tribal leaders, each one having to account and represent a section of their ohana and community that they bring into this boardroom every time we meet. So I appreciate everybody's mana'o on it, and most of all, I appreciate everybody making space, time, and respectfully honoring each other's perspectives. So thank you, and thank you, Kua'oakea. Get home from Aotearoa safely, because we got a lot of work to do in a relatively short time. So thank you. At this time, we're gonna move to, you wanna take this over? No. Okay. No, we gotta do it on 9. You wanna go 9? Yeah. Okay. Okay. At the direction of the chair, we're gonna combine item 6E and item 9. Okay, so item 9 has to do with the letter from the governor. So hold on 1 second here before we start. First of all, I want to thank the more than 270 people. Let's complete all these things. First, okay. Complete. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Let's get Lloyd and his financial report out, and then we have one really important decision-making with Greg. Lloyd,
Thank you very much.
come on. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, good morning, authority members and community. On my financial report, I just want to, on a large basis, this is for the fiscal year 2026, which encompasses July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. We had a legislative appropriation from the legislature of approximately $14 million for this fiscal period. The governor's statewide restriction, our share was approximately $1.4 million, which leaves us $12.6 million left for our operations. I did make a typo mistake on the payroll. In the total, I had 155,000. As you notice, that's just the first quarter. So the total should be 199,590 $90. The total that we spent for the first 4 months is the $222,000. You take that off of the 12.6 million that we have approximately $12.4 million left for the next 8 months. We have an agreement with RCOH for this period of approximately $2.6 million that we already took from the 12.4, leaving us a balance of $9.8 million left for operations for the next 8 months. On the second page on our contracts, each of those contracts, the total funding have been appropriated to each contract already, so it does not affect the $9.8 million left that we have for operations. Thank you.
Just ask for any questions.
Any questions from the board? Authority? No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lloyd. Earlier, you heard me speak about this transition period of which we're at the midpoint. To get through the transition period, you've got the University of Hawaii Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship, and you've got the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, right? So during this transition, Act 255 requires us to function as a joint management team, okay? And so we are in that formation now so that we can remain operationally fluid, while at the same time, the university side is accountable to their hierarchy, which gets to the top at the Board of Regents if necessary, the UH president if necessary. And on our end, it keeps us accountable to the 12-member authority board and our board chair, okay? So this joint management team has been in formation for almost 1.5 years now. And this enables us to look at every major activity that's going on. Okay, operationally, we meet every 2 weeks, so we're aware of what's going on the mountain. Occasionally, you're going to come up with projects that fall into one of 3 classifications: major impact, moderate impact, minor impact, okay? In the major and moderate, the University of Hawaii is required to come before the authority for review. And today we are seeking a approval on one of the projects as I represent the authority as the executive director. I have the privilege of working with the executive director of the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship. Please welcome Dr. Greg Chun.
Mahalo, John. And aloha kako to board members, authority members, and to the public. As John indicated, we are in a joint management period right now. So one of the regular items on the authority board meetings agenda is I provide a operational update, and then we bring forth major projects that need review and approval by the authority. So I'll cover the operation side first. It's pretty mundane. Things have been quiet, pretty quiet. Authority members on the Mauna. Visitor sunset traffic has kind of been waxing and waning. We're kind of in a little bit of a quiet period right now. But we do expect things to ramp up as we approach the holidays. So far, the weather has been cooperative. We haven't had too many issues with road closures or inclement weather. We did have one storm recently that did cause some road damage to the access road that needed some minor repair that our utilities crew were able to handle pretty straightforwardly. Staffing levels remain stable, though we still have 3 vacancies at the visitor information station and a couple of vacancies with our ranger program. Staffing for operations is sometimes very challenging on the Mauna because working up there is not for everyone. We brought for information to you folks earlier this year a project to install a solar water system as a heater supplement to our hot water needs at the Halepohaku. That project has been completed. We also brought to this group, you might recall, a project requiring power restoration to the visitor information station warehouse. Power had been terminated there several years ago. We want to restore it because the warehouse is proving to be a real asset to our visitor information operations, and we need to use it in a variety of different ways. So that project is currently going through county permitting, I believe. And then, of course, the last one, which we'll be reviewing in more detail, is the decommissioning of the underground storage facility, fuel tank facility at Halepohaku. We have a draft EA that we presented to you folks last month, and we're coming back today seeking your approval so that we can move forward with that decommissioning project. So are there any questions just basically on any of the operational items before we get into the draft EA?
Could I give a short? Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna do that. We're gonna have a short recap. Yeah, for sure.
On the field project.
Yeah. We're gonna get into that more detail. Yeah. Any questions from authority board members on any of the operations? Okay, hearing none, let me get into the draft EA for the underground storage tank. Joining us on screen is Kristen Dunn from Sustainable Resources International. They're our consultant working on the draft EA. Kristen, I don't know if your other colleagues are with you, but she's here to answer some questions.
Yeah, Andy's on, I think.
Okay, and Andrew Hood, who's also working on it. Thank you, Kristen. But before we get started, I wanted to ask Rodrigo Romo, our general manager from Mauna Kea Shared Services Group. He is serving as the project manager for this effort. And he will give a short recap of the project to remind you folks what the project is really all about. As a reminder, it is something that we're required to do. So Rodrigo.
Mahalo, Greg. Aloha, board members, aloha, members of the public. So just as a quick reminder, this project has gone already through internal review through our various internal review committees, you guys being included. Part of the project required to perform an environmental assessment before we proceed with the project. A month ago, we submitted the draft EA that SRGII has prepared for your board members to review, and then today make a decision on whether to approve it as is, or if you would like to make any recommendations or changes or suggestions on the draft.
Just to give everybody.
Yes, so as a quick, as a recap of what the project is, we are doing this project in order to meet new regulations set by DOH with regards to underground storage tanks installed throughout the state. New regulations state that by July 15, 2028, any tanks that don't meet current new standards need to be either upgraded to meet new standards or need to be removed from underground. So it was decided, instead of trying to replace the underground storage tanks with new underground storage tanks, we're gonna have those tanks removed and replaced with smaller above ground storage tanks. Currently at Haleʻipohaku, we have 3 underground storage tanks. They all are single wall fiberglass tanks that are used. There's a 12,000 gallon tank for diesel storage, and there's 2 gasoline tanks, a 4,000 gallon tank and a 2,000 gallon tanks. All of those tanks were installed in the early 80s when Haleʻipohaku was built. They do have a leak detection system that gets inspected and tested annually, and there's been no leaks detected in the existence of the tanks. But in order to meet the new specs, we're gonna remove all 3 tanks and all the underground lines that pump fuel from the tanks to the dispensing pumps at the facility. We're also gonna be significantly reducing the footprint of the new storage facility. We're gonna be going from 18,000 gallons of total current storage facility down to 6,000 gallons total, 3,000 for diesel and 3,000 for gas. Diesel is utilized by our utilities team for snow removal, road maintenance, road grading operations, and for our backup diesel boiler up there. And gasoline is used for all the fleets that operate on the mountain, rangers, observatories, and other staff members. The 2 new tanks will be mounted on the 2 new tanks are specifically designed for fuel storage and dispensing. They have a built-in dispensing system into them, so there will be no underground distribution fuel lines anywhere in the mountain. The whole system will be built onto a new concrete slab with a berm around it to provide tertiary containment for the fuel. And like I say, we're gonna be reducing the footprint. It's gonna be a single slab, about 20 by 12 feet. That is going to be the proposed location for its installation. It's in a previously disturbed area where right now we're parking some of the heavy equipment we utilize on the mountain. And so for that project, EA was performed by SRGII, and right now Kristen and her team are here available to answer any questions board members may have.
Any questions from the board members about the EA, draft EA? Quite extensive for everyone. It's like 150 some odd pages. Okay, if not, board members, what they're seeking is a motion to approve the draft so that it can go forward and go through the regulatory process. So could I get a motion to approve the draft?
I'll make that motion, Chair.
Okay, can I get a second?
Again.
Thank you. All right, move in second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One final item in our area, Greg and I, our senior team at the authority, Greg's senior team, have been meeting on how we can approach the sharing of operational costs on the Mauna. And going into the December meeting, we will have a formal draft that we can present to the authority members. We're having to look at it through the remaining 31 months to make sure that we are covered through the transition period, through the biennium period where the funding has been appropriated by the legislature. And so we'll refine that draft and get it before the authority before the December meeting for your review. So on either my comments or Greg's, any of the authority members have questions? Okay, moving to, you want me to, okay. We'll now move to item number 9, the last item on the agenda. And hold on one second. Okay, in our agenda, when we posted this meeting publicly, we added a copy of a letter that was directed to the principals of TIO, the 30-meter Telescope International Observatory, Dr. Henry Yang and Dr. Saku Sunera. That letter came and was signed by Governor Josh Green, U.S. Senator Brian Schatz, U.S. Senator Mazie Hirono, Congressman Ed Case, Congresswoman Jill Tokuda. And it comes on the heels of a presentation that was done here at our September Authority meeting, where the project manager for TMT was providing an update at that time directed at some of the budget cuts that had happened at the federal level to the National Science Foundation. At that time, he gave the first glimpse that I know of TMT's interest in looking at another site. And then on October 24th, this letter came from the signatories that I named. And it says, we would like to formally acknowledge your commitment to addressing Hawaii's community's request for a possible relocation to a disturbed site and to fulfilling the requirements set forth in Act 255. We further wish to express our appreciation for TIO's ongoing efforts to understand the diverse perspectives surrounding the construction of TMT. Essentially, what the governor was saying, and what all the signatories were saying, is that they would be turning to the Mauna Kea Authority and the University of Hawaii to identify what the process would be if TMT, decided to explore another site on Mauna Kea. Ordinarily, that you could refer to current operations, current procedures and policies. But when you put a question like that at the midpoint of a transition period, okay, if the principals of TIO wanted to pursue something like this today, they would not come to the authority. They would go to DLNR, okay? The challenge here is beginning to understand the roles and responsibilities that come with a process like that is moving through a transition period. Because the rules along the way begin to change, okay? And so when this letter was received, the board chair was copied on it. Again, the letter is not to the authority, but to the principals of TIO. He got a carbon copy, and then the president of the University of Hawaii received a carbon copy as well. That prompted us at the staff level to convene a meeting with DLNR, with the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, and with the University of Hawaii, to begin to understand how would you respond to something like this when the process is undergoing a transition, okay? We took this step in anticipation that our chair or staff would be called into the governor's office or called by the congressional delegation to begin to explain to them what this process would consist of. So you've got DLNR, UH, and the authority who over the next 31 months are collectively going through a transition. So what we've done is started to identify with each of the major players what the process is today, okay? And we are on our way to identifying what that process would take, because as it changes, as the rules change, as authority moves to the Mauna Kea Authority, we need to be able to account for that when either TIO calls or the signatories of the letter call, okay? And so we are in the process of drafting that, what that process looks like to us today. DLNR, UH, and the Mauna Kea Authority have agreed that the goal is to get to a common understanding and a common document that would identify not only what the process would be, but also what some of the loose ends and perhaps even legislative amendments that have to be made to Act 255 that may be required from just responding to this, what looks like a pretty direct question. And so where we are today is a draft of our initial meeting, and our initial understanding is now being reviewed by the legal teams at UH, DLNR, and at the authority, essentially our Deputy Attorney General. And so we haven't yet finalized what that process is, but it's going to be important that we get it done, not only to respond to the elected officials, but frankly, to respond to a community that has been, whose interest has been stimulated as news of this letter have become more public. I believe we've got roughly 270 plus, almost 300 written testimonies to this end. I will tell you that in looking at some of the testimony, those testimonies are going to be applicable if TIO decides to explore this opportunity or this alternative. It's going to open a series of community engagement and community meetings. And some of what I saw in terms of the concerns that are being expressed are actually going to be extremely effective, not only today, but downstream in the event they make the choice to pursue this. I'm going to stop there and open it to the authority if any further clarification is needed before we take testimony.
Let me say in my own words, what the process is currently. Okay? The process is currently DLNR, you file for what is called a conservation use permit. The DLNR determines whether or not a particular use, such as observatory, should be granted exemption and be able to build in a conservation use permit. So there's one process that goes through the DLNR. Okay. There is also a process that the University CMS, Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship, created, which this is oversimplifying, but it's almost like a building permit, more like a building permit. How are you going to build it? What's it going to look like? What are the dimensions? What are the outside colors? And really focus on what that potential project would look like. So there's a separate, I guess, process. So you have one process DLNR, one with the University of Hawaii, right? And then the executive director was saying, as we start kind of integrating Act 255, like what role does the Mauna Kea Authority play in this process? We play no role currently in the DNR process by law. But in the university process, as you've just seen, as it relates to the fuel tank storage issue that we just voted on, we do have some say on the university process, okay? So what we're trying to do is to make sure we fully understand and map each of the processes. So we can respond, as Executive Director said, both to the signatories to the letter, as well as to the people that the letter was addressed to. We're also trying to identify where there may be potential challenges or gaps because of this transition period. We don't have the authority to change any of those processes, but we want to at least identify where those, how the process works and where there may be need for attention by somebody to kind of fix the processes or to fill some of the gaps. Let me give you an example, right? What if we have the ability after July, and it's still in dispute, who has the ability to issue conservation use permits after July 1st? Well, let's say TMT started a application tomorrow, and they haven't, but let's say they did. What happens on July 1st, 2028? Does that process continue on with the Mauna Kea Authority, or do they have to start over again? Those kind of issues are the kind of issues that we're trying to identify so that there can be some discussion about what happens with the process. But all we're doing right now is kind of like you've heard the word inventory. We're trying to make sure that we understand what the process is, that people agree with what the process is, okay? So for today, at this hearing, we welcome and we really appreciate that all of you have come. We appreciate the 300 some odd people that submitted testimony. But just to make it clear, we're not voting on anything today. Okay, there is nothing for us to vote on. We're not voting on TMT, but we welcome your input. But just to make it clear, we're not voting on whether or not TMT should be built. We're not voting on amending the process. We're still in the phase of identifying what the process is. But again, we're going to call on those that have signed up to testify. And again, we welcome your input. We have, and I think most of the members have reviewed the almost 300 emails and letters that have come in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down the list and we can test whether you can stand in your place, but I prefer you guys come up here so that people on the signed in virtually can hear. So I'm just going to go down the list, and as you signed in, I'm going to call you up to testify.
Excuse me, Chair.
Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. First, I just wanted to make a statement, and I want to thank you for putting this item on the agenda because it wasn't directly addressed to the authority, but you were copied in. So it gives our community an opportunity to weigh in, even though we are not making any decisions today, as you said. And I think that's really important. And I want to acknowledge the 300 or so people who submitted their testimony, and note that when I read through the testimonies, the vast majority of them are, of course, opposing any movement on TMT, and I only saw one in favor. So I just want to state that. I personally have to depart in about 10 minutes. So I wanted to just let you know that even though I'll be departing, that I am very much aware of all the testimonies coming in, and mahalo to everybody to engaging in this process. And so that's what I want to say. So mahalo. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Real quick, Mayor's office. Yeah, I appreciate all the testimony too. I'm a big fan of, having voice and sharing your voice. So I appreciate that. I like that. I have a meeting coming up, so I'm gonna have to sign off at about 12-ish, 12:30-ish. So just to let you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm just echoing that too. Yeah, mahalo for everyone for community engagement. But again, also I'm also on a time restraint here that will be about another 15 minutes or so. But I was holding her.
Okay, thank you, Lanakila. Okay, so if we might, Elton and Elaine San Jose. All right, by the way, we will give you everybody 2 minutes, okay? Yes, 2. And if you have, we assume that we've read all of the letters. Could we have? Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Elaine San Jose, and I recently, in the past 7 years, been living at what you guys know as Humu'ula Sheep Station. After our kukiai mauna had dispersed and everyone went back home in December, my family and I decided to imua up Ta'ala, and we went to Humu'ula Sheep Station, and we've been living there for the last 7 years. I have a question for you folks, the authority. Have you folks considered in asking of the observatories that are still there if they're willing to add 20 meters to their lens instead of having TMT take up more space on the Mauna? That's my first question. Second is, have you folks taken in consideration on making a toll booth for all these visitors that have been going up there with their vehicles and desecrating? You don't know if these vehicles are leaking oil whatsoever to the Aina, but that's one of the second questions I'm considering I have. And then also, possibilities of removing, like I said, if TMT does come, to remove every single observatory that's there to build just that one TMT building. That's my third question.
We're not gonna go into answer, but we will know the questions.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
But yeah, mahalo.
Kailani Chu.
Chair, suggest you also queue up the next speaker so it just moves a little faster. Thank you.
Okay. You guys think that you guys can see the strings of my? Then you're up next if you can queue up, so I don't get scolded.
Aloha Chair, members of the MKSOA. My name is Kailani Chu, and I'm a community organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm testifying again regarding Agenda 9. I strongly oppose the letter that Governor Josh Green and the Hawaiʻi congressional delegation sent to the 30-meter Telescope International Observatory, supporting the construction of the TMT and attempt to strong-arm the MKSOA to improve construction alternative site, or so they say, to explore, right? After years of fierce resistance from both Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians alike, it cannot be more clear that the community will not accept TMT. Rather than listen and respect to the wishes of the community, state leaders along the TIO seem to be trying to break their own laws to force this project through. This attempt to consolidate power and clear a path for TMT on Mauna Kea is shameful and also insulting. I strongly urge the MKSOA to resist this overreach by the governor, congressional delegates, and the TIO. I know that if TMT does come, then I know that many of our community members, countless of us, will be standing at the Mauna to stop TMT. A'ole TMT. Mahalo.
Then followed by Millicent Cummings.
Aloha mai kako o wau no o Ben Kacho. I am the Indigenous Communications and Outreach Specialist for American Bird Conservancy. I'm also the co-founder of Na Leo Na Hele, the Keiki group that's been engaging with our community members on the board. I was leaving for some other projects, but their ability to show up and to be a Leo is exactly what I've been teaching our Keiki and my fellow Kumus. My work keeps me connected daily to the native forest and the manu who depend on the health of our mauna. Recently, the Na Leo Na Hele Hui from Kanu'uka Aina have been the firing up their iini to be the leo of the voices of the Nahele who cannot testify. From the lens of conservation, the Mauna is a watershed and one of the last refuge for Hawaii's most imperiled native species, such as the palila and the mamane. The Endangered Species Act isn't just a legal framework, it's a promise. A promise that places like Mauna Kea in one of our most critical watersheds and last refuge for Hawaii's most imperiled species will not be sacrificed. Under the ESA, species like the palila and the mamane forest they depend on are recognized as having the right to survive, and also as we as stewards carry the kuleana to ensure their protection. Our next generation are watching us. The decisions made by the board, our community, will be the soon kuleana that they will need to awamo to take on. Should we fail to bring the change we need, we will give them the issues we could prevent, or will we give them the future that they want for themselves? Mahalo nui for having me. Aloha.
Is Milton here? Milton, followed by, is it Sky or is?
Aloha kako. My name is Millicent Cummings. The letter from Governor Green's office addressed to Dr. Yang and Sunita states, we look forward to working with TIO and the broader community to honor the shared responsibility for stewardship of Mauna Kea and the success of this project. Firstly, shared responsibility was never granted to TIO or some unspecified broader community, and all previous stewardship has been wrought with outrageous breaches of lawful procedure, reckless environmental desecration, severe cultural trauma, and well-documented mismanagement, rendering any idea of shared responsibility null and void. Secondly, this audacious overreach, while in keeping with a long tradition of the same, is unlawful. Regarding the opening statement, we would like to formally acknowledge your commitment to addressing the Hawaiʻi community's request for a possible relocation to a disturbed site. This begs the question, which segment exactly of Hawaiʻi's community requested this bait and switch location for TMT? And how would it prevent continued desecration on Mauna Kea and continued wanton lawlessness? Since the state's official 2014 audit and indictment, there has been no follow-up audits of said management. That report verified that only 7 out of 38 recommendations were fully implemented, 18 were partially implemented, and 13 were never implemented at all, rendering all previous recommendations pretty much meaningless. This led to your oversight, rightfully stripping the UH of primary management authority, but one of so many examples of relentless disregard for lawful procedure during this illegal occupation is the fact that there are no truck runaway ramps or permits for such. Proceeding without ramps for this 10-year construction project turns a blind eye to the high probability of endangering workers, tourists, astronomers, cultural practitioners, and the public at large, violating occupational roadway safety mandates and basic common sense. As evidenced by brake failures that have led to fatalities on the Mauna in the past, for anyone to make a conscious decision to support any project on a 15% grade road without runway ramps constitutes reckless endangerment under HRS 707-713 and willful wanton negligence under HCJI 8.5, warranting immediate injunction, punitive damages, and possible imprisonment. Thank you for considering the public, and in the future, for many of the members of our community who are working people or who have disabilities or are kupuna, to make them sit for 2 hours to be able to share their mana'o. Some of them had to leave. I think it would be a wonderful thing to rethink in terms of the structure of your meetings to show that consideration to the people who have come to give their mana'o. And thank you for listening to mine. Have a wonderful day. Aloha kukio ka imona.
Bye, followed by Elena Ala, slight home. And Susan Rozier.
Aloha mai kako, o wau o sky no ho'ao ma Waiakea uka. I'm a working single mom and having to keep giving testimony on issues that threaten the well-being of our people and our aina definitely takes a toll. Last week, I urged OHA to hold the governor accountable for the backdoor deals he's making with Driscoll on the illegal renewal of military leases. And earlier this morning, I was at the contested case hearing for Andrew Tepper's special use permit, including his push for an annual Burning Man style festival, watching yet another process where cultural harm is minimized so development can move forward. And now here we are with MKSOA. Let's be honest, who decided that Mauna Kea is a highly valued site for astronomical study? Who wrote that language and who was it meant to serve? Because it wasn't the community who actually protects this Mauna. Act 255 may have had formal legislative hearings, but that is not true community consultation. That's the bare minimum required on paper. I was at the Haleʻolelo meeting, and it did not feel like a space for all voices. We weren't asked whether TMT belongs on Mauna Kea. We were broken into groups to, quote, clarify wording on a document that already assumes TMT will move forward. That's not consultation, that's manufactured consent. That's not engagement, that's dismissal. If we are genealogically connected to Mauna Kea, then when you change the DNA of the Mauna, you change the DNA of the people too. And our Mauna has gone through enough. That's why we are not okay. And that's why TMT on the Mauna will never be okay. I want to be clear. Mauna Kea is not your client. We don't need these meetings because we don't need TMT. How can we protect Pohakuloa after over a century of desecration, but then pretend TMT is something we should negotiate? The disharmony comes from the cognitive dissonance built into the MKSOA. The disharmony exists because TMT exists. The solution is no TMT on Mauna Kea. And after witnessing the Tepper case today, the way cultural harm was brushed aside, it's clear. These systems were not built to protect our aina. We are the ones protecting it. No TMT, ever. Mahalo.
Followed by Susan Rozier.
Aloha. I just wanted to thank you for clarifying what your position is today and the fact that you folks aren't voting on anything. I did submit written testimony that I stand on. And then after listening to some things, I just wanted to add that the letter that Josh Green sent was extremely offensive and harmful. And since April 2nd of 2015, there have been about 90 arrests, half of which were kupuna. If the people of a project can stand by and witness the arrest of our elders, continue to pursue construction efforts, and fail to hear the voices of the host culture, then we need to pause and consider whether this project is in alignment with our beliefs and carries out the state's own model of ua mau ke ea o ka aina i ka pono. So a'ole TMT. Mahalo.
Followed by Makoa. Makoa.
Thank you, those who bared with me back there when my phone was going off. I'm sorry for that. My name is Susan Rossier. I was Puna Mauna. I was also on the contested case hearing. Currently, I'm still recovering. I'm looking for my thing to say, and if I can't find it, since I messed this thing up. So I'm a part and have been a part of Nakapunamoko Keawe for many, many years. And I stand here today because we lost our beloved Hank Fergestrom, and he was the spokesperson. And I stand here today in front of you because now According to Auntie Jessie K of Ka'u, I am it. I am the facilitator of the Communication Council of Nakapuna Moko Okeawe. First of all, they want you to know, and anything that I say is things that they have told me that I wrote down that I can't even read right now. But the stand has always been that this is not the United States. And what they want me to explain to you is that Public Law 103-150 from 1993, the apology, states clearly that Tanaka never gave up their rights to their land. The land that you are talking about is Crown and government, Hawaiian Kingdom government land, and the Hawaiian Kingdom stands today, as it's clearly stated in the UN and at The Hague from 1999 on, that the kingdom still exists in continuity. The apology bill, which is Public Law 3150, in essence, canceled out the Newlands resolution. It stated that Kanaka never gave up any of their rights, and in fact, all their rights are to that land. That land was supposed to be given in trust during the Organic Act, and if you read the Organic Act, it's trust land. It's not made to do what they've done and rent it out to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. That's my personal opinion, right? That small sentence. Sorry, I get carried away. So I'm saying to you, as I've heard the young people saying today, and there's one of them in the audience, I just heard last week say this is their birthright. There is no government that can take their birthright. You are talking about land that is the birthright of the people of these islands. You're talking about a government that has admitted they are here illegally. Anything the state is here illegally. I thank you folks for your time, and I thank you folks for coming out. And this is only the beginning. It's only just begun. Mahalo.
Followed by Kiala Liloy, Henry Liloy.
Aloha to you, members of the board. My name is Moko, and I come before you today to deliver testimony on behalf of Huil Ha'aino Hilo as Vice President and as Vice President of Ka'ahui Hawaiʻi Aloha Aina. To keep in 2 minutes, as that maybe is hard to do with all the things that we need to be talking about. We strongly urge Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority to resist this excessive overreach by Josh Green and congressional delegates. This isn't about transitional authority. This is about taking advantage of the Mauna as a bargaining chip. Their attempts to consolidate power and a clear path for TMT on Mauna Kea only shows their lack of judgment in all matters concerning stewardship. Hold all parties accountable to the law for the safety of all you have been tasked to protect. Mauna Kea. The letter by Josh Green in itself is in disturbing alignment with so much we are seeing across US occupied Hawaii, where politicians and corporations talk behind closed doors, bump fists, and attempt to roll over the will and peace of the community. We remind the authority that the summit of Mauna Kea is not just sacred. These are Hawaiian national lands and waters that the Hawaiian Kingdom government and its people never relinquish, just as Auntie just said. They're not for sale. This reminder surrounds us in this room right now as I speak. If you look on all of the walls in the IFA library, we see all these posters of King David Kalakaua and all of the amazing feats that he accomplished. We'll support TMT. But there's a side of Kalakaua that's not shown on these posters, and that was his sentiments towards our crown lands. In 1876, in the beginning of December, there was a Privy Council, Kalakaua's Privy Council. He wasn't present for this meeting. In this meeting, his ministers had decided, motioned, and voted to allow for the sale of crown lands in Honolulu and Kaka'ako. This wasn't a for sure sale. This was just to open up the idea of it. Within 10 days, the Privy Council reconvened. All ministers were forced to resign, and they were all replaced by folks that he felt could do the right thing. Imagine if it was Mauna Kea instead of that Kaka'ako lot. I bring this up because we talk about the mo'oku'auhau of stewardship atop Mauna Kea. And I believe that it's examples like these that we should be looking to best understand what we are doing with our crown lands. How are we protecting it for the Hawaiian people and all of Hawaii? I leave you folks with that. And as an organization, we commit to standing again if necessary. And for as long as it takes to protect our mauna, our water, and the dignity of our people. E ho'omau ke kupa'a no ke aloha i ka ʻaina. Mahalo.
After Henry Liloy Anuhea leads.
Ano ai me ke kapu aloha. It is challenging to testify in kapu aloha after nearly 7 years of testifying and showing up in kapu aloha for majestic sacred Mauna Awa Kea. My name is Ke'ala Liloy, a retired teacher, school administrator, kanaka, and aloha aina. If your intent, and this is not directed to you because you are the messengers and I understand that, but if the intent of the governor was to insult the intellectual and emotional intelligence of Kanaka, then he has certainly achieved that intention. What is exactly difficult to comprehend if we say a'ole TMT? There is no compromise with Mauna Awa Kea. The University of Hawaii has already committed more destruction and overbuild of Mauna Kea than it ever should have without clear transparency and proper oversight of existing telescopes. The goal is to remove each telescope as each becomes obsolete and is decommissioned and properly removed, not to dig deeper. The governor's suggestion to relocate TMT to a disturbed site as suggested by a Hawaii community is again ludicrous, insulting to the intellectual and emotional intelligence of Kanaka. Furthermore, what Hawaii community exactly is Governor Josh Green referring to? Is it the same community who supported TMT that created the Great Divide throughout the Pai'aina? If so, he's addressing the wrong community. A Star Advertiser editorial called Keep Astronomy on Mauna Kea Summit was printed in our view January 31st, 2022. It called astronomy in Hawaii the perfect brainstorm intersect of science, economy, geography, and culture, with astronomy coming out ahead as thriving, successful, contributing $221 million to the annual economy. In February 2022, a brilliant rebuttal was written by Professor Williamson Chang of the Richardson School of Law. It was entitled, "In Hawaii, a pristine Mauna Kea is a moral imperative." It speaks even louder in our current political and economic environment with the premature and forced negotiations between the military and state officials regarding the end of the 65-year lease of the Pohakuloa training area. Professor William Chang's main points are captured here, and I've tried to reduce them. Number one, he claims the article gives little weight to the importance of Mauna Kea, the value of a pristine Mauna Kea to Native Hawaiians and those who share their sense of self. Number two, a utilitarian approach that makes decisions simply based on the preferences of the many and simply weighs economic benefits or progress is simply wrong. It is wrong because it produces injustice. If we apply the utilitarian approach to all decisions, then minorities would always lose. Justice is not measured by balancing economic benefits against the universal moral rights of each individual. Equating the economy with the intrinsic value of a sacred place is trying to compare apples to oranges. The worth of a person is not reducible to economic values or service to others. All who have worth or value as individuals have this value equally. We must never treat people in ways that fail to show proper respect for their unique value. Yet, this is what we do. When, as the editorial suggests, we weigh science, economy, geography as more important than the distinctive value that people have as individuals. This balancing of economic interests, the use of preference polls to treat Native Hawaiians as a mere means to promote the ends of others, any such disrespectful treatment is wrong no matter what the consequences. Moral rights are universal. Moral rights are inalienable. Native Hawaiians did not lose their rights because of the overthrow, annexation, or the settlement of Hawaiʻi by others. Moral rights are equal rights. If there are sacred places, be it Arizona Memorial, World Trade Center, Mount Fuji, Mount Kilimanjaro, or the many sacred forests, rivers, animals, and reserves, there are sacred places in Hawaii. Mauna Kea is more than just a mountain. Mauna Kea has a crucial place in the world of Hawaiians. It is the epitome of the religious core of Native Hawaiians. It is an essential part of a worldview unique to Hawaii, a worldview that we see in action every day in the form of the Aloha Spirit, Malama Aina, Pono, and Kuleana. Finally, Hawaii is the homeland of Native Hawaii. For those who came from other countries, that which is sacred is protected by national sovereignty. If what is sacred to Hawaiians is not protected in Hawaii, then where? I wish these were my words. They are not. This is from a law professor at the Richardson School of Law. Let me also remind this board that as of March 27th, 2025, Mauna Kea was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This should guarantee the protection of our Mauna and any further discussion of building TMT, TIO, NO, whatever alphabet you choose. Meko oia I o wale no.
Followed by Anuhea Lee, and then Luella. No, sorry, I cannot read your last name.
Just heard from my wife. It's a little hard to follow that. In a few days, we celebrate our 35th wedding anniversary. We met right here at Hilo College, protecting Kaho'olawe 50 years ago. And I couldn't think of any better place to be celebrating our anniversary, but at your side. And I love you for that. Fighting for what we believe in. Aloha MKSOA board members. Aloha to all who are present. To those streaming online, on Zoom, on your cell phones, and aloha to all those who have passed on into the darkness of the night. My name is Dr. Henry Leloy. I'm a retired Native Hawaiian physician. Born and raised in Hilo, I practice internal medicine here in Hilo for 35 years. I oppose the construction of TIO. Relocating TMT to the disturbed site of the Caltech telescope is like removing and exhuming the graves at Arlington Cemetery or Punchbowl Cemetery and then reusing the same site for military housing. That would be an abomination and desecration to all of us. Yet since the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom, our land has been stolen from us and repeatedly raped in the name of progress, economy, science, and national security. MKSOA board members, you're well educated. Your backgrounds are commendable, as reviewed by Director DeFries. You know our painful history. Will you act as an accomplice in perpetuating this crime? Take the land from under us. Ignore our traditional, cultural, and spiritual beliefs. Take our dignity, and you wonder why our streets are filled with Native Hawaiians who are homeless, and our prisons are packed, as well as our mental institutions. TMT, too many telescopes. My colleague, Dr. Green, TIO, take it out. Congressional members, Hirono, Okuda, Schatz, and Case, TIO, take it out. MKSOA, EIO, take it out. Thank you, board, for your time, expertise, and service. Sometimes the hardest things to see is not out there in outer space. It's right in front of our eyes.
We have as she's walking up, we have a logistical issue, so after unveiling, we're supposed to, there's a program coming into this room, and we have to vacate by 12:40. Okay, if we're not finished with testimony, we're gonna have to relocate up to the library upstairs, so appreciate everybody sticking to the 2 minutes. We've kind of been giving people like leeway, but appreciate that.
I'll try and speak fast.
No.
Velina Maikakoe, Chair, members of the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority, most importantly to everyone, especially the Kia'i present today. O Anuhea Li Ko'ui Noa Ano Hilo Maiau. I am a Kanaka Maoli and a resident of the fake state of Hawaii. I stand in firm and absolute opposition to any proposal, discussion, or consideration relating to the construction of the TMT on Mauna Kea, including any so-called compromise to move it to a disturbed site. I could speak endlessly about the sacredness of Mauna Awa Kea, its spiritual, cultural, and environmental significance to our people, but today I want to address something deeper: the ongoing disregard and erasure of Native Hawaiian voices that has defined this project from the start, which is one reason this authority was created. Since 2014, the opposition has been clear, consistent, and overwhelming. Our people have spoken through protests, vigils, educational movements, and petitions. Nearly 500,000 individuals across the Pai'aina have publicly affirmed A'ole TMT. Despite this, state decision makers and TIO continue to frame the TMT as a beacon of scientific progress. According to TMT's own website, TMT is meant to be an extraordinary international scientific endeavor that will revolutionize our understanding of the universe. But that vision is no longer unique. The NSF itself has recently redirected its funding to Chile, where the extremely large telescope and another large telescope, the telescope I named being larger and more advanced than TMT, are already under construction. TMT now also faces a $1 billion funding gap. So I ask this, if the world's leading scientific institutions are moving on, why is Hawaii still being asked to carry the burden, spiritually, environmentally, and socially, for a project that the world itself has outgrown? The truth is simple. The community has said no. Not no unless you relocate it, not no unless we're compensated, just no. A'ole TMT, maua mau. Mahalo nui for your time and for your willingness to listen with integrity to the voices of the people that you serve. Thank you.
Followed by Deborah Ward, and then anybody else that wishes to testify. We have one Zoom after that. Okay.
Aloha. My name is Luola Nohea Crutcher. I used to wonder why we couldn't share. And I finally found something in the EIS written a long time ago by John Chang. Small little paragraph in an inch worth of information that that David Marlowe described it as a lana nuhumama, which means it is the most sacred kind of temple for Hawaii. Now, what's also interesting, I find that God, Aloha, put the tallest mountain on Big Island. Now, I find that interesting because for me, I am a Christian, but Christianity is about Jesus Christ. The ike that Akua gave our people is how to live on this planet. I mean, I think of I don't know any other culture. Number one, the language is so spiritual. You know, when you think of the word aloha, it means so much. Alo, to stand before Ha, the spirit. But we're a scientific spirituality group. We're not pagan. It's not gods. They're elemental energies that are given names. So Poliahu is the snow on Mauna Kea. Now, I learned this when I went to help the Kiai up on the Mauna Kea, because after I found out it was a Lananu Mama, I realized that the whole top, the whole energy of the top 1,000 feet down is a Mamau. That's where God's presence is. The next 1,000 feet is where the priest prayed, and they're there. And I think the old altars were all at that level. And then the next level down is where, thank goodness, that's where they created the place where the people can park and stuff, right? So when I look at this, why are we even letting people up on the top? It is God's energy. It's God's kuleana. Our kuleana is to take care of it, which means it should be never. It's too bad that our people are so soft and gentle. They've always mentioned it's spiritual, yet we've ignored it. Our age group has ignored it and allowed to be desecrated. So I hope the desecration stops now. A'ole. And I think part of your group should add that part in it. And it should be that the things that are up there should prepare to leave when their leases are up. And that's it. I don't think there should be any discussion about anything going on because it's not ours to discuss. It's God's. If it wasn't for God, we wouldn't even be here. At least, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I don't care what religion you belong to, Wakea, Akua, God, whatever you want to call him, the creator is still the creator for everybody. And that we were given a special blessing to have the tallest mountain, which people in the world accepted as the most spiritual, because it is the tallest mountain. So I'd like us to remember that it is, and I hope that there's some way. I know that there's some laws The American, no, not that one. The National Historic Preservation Act provides legal protection for Lana Nu'umamau, requiring federal agencies to cultivate affected parties. And I think, let's see what else. The Hawaii revised statute talks about designed to protect historic properties. So that includes the Lana Nu'umamau. So I just asked for that. And people mentioned about Oaxaca law. I'd also like to include that too, even though this isn't about that. But the army should be gone. We are a speck on the map, a tiny speck on that map if you look. And here, they're bombing here. Why aren't they bombing someplace else? It's not appropriate. So I'm gonna just end with that.
Word.
Aloha kako. Excuse me. Aloha kako. My name is Deborah Ward. Thank you very much for the opportunity and mahalo for everyone's enormously important mana'o today. I'm going to speak just to the charge that was given to you by our congressional delegation, all of which came as a great surprise to many of us. I want you to consider reviewing the Keystone Report of 2009 that was prepared in support of the TMT by Gordon Moore Foundation by Peter Adler. The concerns and the challenges, the cautions outlined presented themselves in that report 15 years ago. They were met in full. All the cautions, all the grave warnings that he issued were met by 10,000 marchers in Honolulu. Thousands occupied the Saddle Road and Access Road for months. 2 lengthy contested case hearings. Several protracted court cases went to the Supreme Court. Permits were challenged, some were withdrawn, including the NPDES, which was never finalized. They're no longer in place. The permits are expired and not extended. And since the report, the establishment of the traditional cultural practice site in the National Historic Register has added another layer of concern for any kind of construction on the summit or the surrounds at this point. And the National Science Foundation determined that only 1 US telescope will be funded. And so this should give you an indication that the scope of the TMT is run out at this point. The EIS is on hold, the Section 106 is on hold, and will require new state and federal EIS should this be built. The logistics, I remember very distinctly being told over and over again, that the TMT would not fit on any of the summit sites because of its size. The CSO was nowhere near 5 acres, and that's what the TMT is currently requiring. Will the 180-foot structure be visible from Lake Waiau? I don't know, but I intend to look into that. If it were built. The lease ends in 2033, and obviously with the transition challenges, the administrative rules, the comprehensive management plan, the TMT management plan, the new CDUP, all of these things are unfinished. The legislature has proposed changes to Act 255, including changes to the law that will require changes to HRS 183, changes to the trusteeship that's currently held by DLNR, changes to Chapter 91, changes to the contested case hearing rules, and more. The plans to make public participation more difficult is in the works. Muted action on the part of the people will be strenuously opposed. I'll be really fast. Plans to make public, so our major concerns, I'll just skip to the bottom. Kuleana for stewards of the sacred space. Kuleana for the environment, the plants, the insects, the lichens, everything else. the funding, the logistics, the legal process, the opposition to industrialization of a sacred site and a conservation district. And I want to point out too, that Sierra Club, and including myself, but many others, including Nelson Ho, have been involved since the 70s. It's my 50th year involved in caring for Mauna Kea in all the ways that I've been able to. And there's been zero outreach to Sierra Club, even though more than half of our board is Kanaka Maoli. So we've been involved since 95, 2003, 2009, 2011, 2016, and I'm on the Environment Committee, and yet there has been no outreach with regard to this issue. So I'll cut it short there, but thank you so much for allowing us to testify today. Mahalo.
Thank you. Aloha mai kako. I appreciate this opportunity because I may be one of the lone voices speaking today for TMT. I stand for TMT as a Hawaiian and part of the silent majority that exists. I support the 30-meter telescope, not because I don't love our Aina, but because I do. If I truly believe this project desecrated our sacred land the way Walmart resorts and big mainland developments already have, I would be standing right beside you in protest. But this is not that. This is about knowledge, education, opportunity, and the survival of our people right here in our homeland. I've heard the words trauma and fragility used over and over again, as though the Mauna itself trembles in human presence. But let's speak honestly. Trauma is not a telescope. The Mauna is not fragile. Our people are. Our culture is. Our presence here is. No one individual, no one group, no one agenda has the right to speak for all Hawaiians and all who call Hawaii home. We cannot let one narrative and one voice erase all the others. There exists a silent majority. And if trauma truly comes from telescopes, where was the outrage when more than a dozen others were built before this one? Where were the protests then?
Yep.
Some of those telescopes pay only $1 a year to be there. Where is the outrage for this? But TMT, this project has offered millions for education, millions in lease rent for the community and for the future of our keiki. They have not broken ground because they are determined to do it the right way, with respect, consultation, and with care, with pono, and have met with over 1,000 kiai so far in difficult, uncomfortable conversations and continue to have an open door for civil discussion. You may not know this. Our elite knew the difference between destruction and progress. King David Kalakaua, our merry monarch, was not afraid of the future. In 1881, King Kalakaua became the first reigning monarch to circumnavigate the globe, undertaking 281 world tour to bolster diplomatic relations, promote Hawaiian culture, secure labor for booming sugar industry. And he studied modern technological advancements to ensure Hawaii's future as a sovereign nation by studying science and innovation, learning how other nations thrived. Did you know he brought electricity to Iolani Palace long before the White House ever had it? He sent our youth to study engineering, medicine, and astronomy because he knew our ancestors were the first astronomers guided by the stars long before telescopes existed. As for his belief in astronomy, he was passionate about science and stars, which led to plans. This led to plans for a local observatory. Telescopes? He visited the Lick Observatory in California during his first stop of his tour around the world and expressed a strong desire to bring a large, modern telescope to Hawaii, a goal that ultimately led to the development of astronomy on Mauna Kea.
Would you have protested our king too? Would you have accused him of not being Hawaiian enough? This is a dangerous and false narrative. We need to know our history, all of it. Our own monarchs and their vision for all of Hawaii. Do not go against King Kalakaua's dreams or his commitment to modernizing the Kingdom of Hawaii and ensuring its status as a forward-thinking, independent nation on the global stage. King Kalakaua believed we could protect our culture while embracing knowledge. If he were here today, I believe he would stand for balance, for wisdom, and for courage, not fear, not either or. We can protect what is sacred and still build what is needed. The Mauna has stood through centuries of storms, through lava, through time itself. It does not fear telescope. It is our people who are fragile, our numbers, our homes, our future here in Hawaii. Where is the outrage for being fourth in the census in our own homeland? We cannot continue to call the Mauna sacred only when it's convenient. We cannot ignore the desecration of our shorelines, our reefs, our ecosystems, poisoned by cesspools and sewage, blocked by luxury developments, cut off from Hawaiian access. Those places are truly fragile. Where are the protests for them? The Mauna is strong as it has stood for 1,000,000 years. And it will 1,000,000 more, long after all of you are gone. The real crisis and question I have for all of you is, will we Hawaiians still be here, even in a few generations? And now we have the Mauna Kea stewardship and oversight. Thank you so much. I know it's difficult because we are all passionate, but all Hawaiian voices count, even the silent majority and those who cannot speak for fear of oppression, for fear of backlash, for getting shamed.
6 minutes.
Thank you. And to those who stay silent because they're afraid of being shamed, of being called less Hawaiian for believing in progress, a'ole. Do not be afraid. You are not alone. There are many of us who carry both aloha for our culture and a vision for the future. We've always looked to the stars for guidance. Let us look to them now with courage and with love for both our people and our aina. Be on the right side of history, like our beloved Mary Monarch, protecting the living, breathing people of Hawaii. Mahalo nui. All voices count more. Thank you. All voices matter.
We have the Zoom testifier.
Yeah, we have one Zoom testifier. Anybody else that wants to testify, please line up. Supposed to, 5 minutes overdue or exit. Thank you. One more Zoom testifier. Hold on, we got one more person testifying on Zoom. Sorry. All right, please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Hello. Tara.
Yes.
Right, go ahead. Please.
Aloha. Yeah, I just want to say that as I was listening earlier, when I forgot who was speaking, and when Kalehua group had mentioned you guys are just over-complicating the process. Just Aina is the connection between Aina and Kanaka is Aina. It's just, that's just the truth. Mind you, I haven't been listening to the other parts of the meeting testimony, but I heard and I know you're not going to make a decision now. But what I do want to bring to light is this. Laws that have been written for the protection of Aina, for water, and in this case, for Mauna Kea, they're being broken every day. We see by the letter that these people wrote, in addition to the governor, all of his decisions, they're not following their own law. So even if you make this whole thing about, we're gonna go through this thing about gathering, what was it, the information, the mo'olelo, I'm going through all of this. I've been in enough meetings and enough varied meetings to know that this process doesn't work. It just looks good on paper, but it's never followed through. So if we went through how many NSF meetings on how many islands for how many hours and for how many years for this proposal to even be thought of, it's a no is a no. Literally, a no is a no. We know this fake state, this usurped, illegally occupying fake state, and the rules and systems is not made to protect Aina, because we spoke up for Pahakuloa. The Hawaii County Council actually listened and voted for the resolution 234-25. The BLNR, we went through the process, and then the community spoke in the BLNR, rejected the Army, renewal leases. And what does the governor do? He goes and does backdoor deals and said he's going to make a framework thing, and then another situation site for Mauna Kea for the TMT. No, it's just this fake state and these agencies, departments, and whatever authority gets created. You guys gotta follow the rules. Nobody is above the law. You cannot keep breaking the law. The governor and these Congress people are just breaking the law. Sorry if I can't hear what you're saying, but in other words, just as you go through this convoluted process, just know that in the end, somebody or some people might just decide they're gonna do, regardless of all these years we've spoken, said no. So a no is a no. Respect the Aina, respect the vibe, protect it with all you got. Don't make any seated, or what was it? Don't make any exceptions, basically. A no is a no. We spoke of enough for them, for no TMT on the Mauna ever. Mahalo.
Thank you. Okay, so that ends our meeting today. Like I said, we have to get out of here because they're having a program at 1:00. Our next authority meeting, and who knows what transpires between today and our next meeting, in terms of what our agenda is going to be. But our next meeting is on December 11th. Same upstairs, 10:00 to noon. So we welcome all of you. If we have something on the agenda that we welcome everybody to come and share your manao. We really do